Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Amobi Okugo with the Frugal Athlete. This is Frugal Fundamentals, our 6-week virtual workshop where we navigate different themes that help athletes and sports business professionals in the athletic space. Today we got Hakeem Valles, former, former as of now NFL veteran. He might have some things in the works. He's also a real estate investor, master networker, and motivational speaker as well. So we're lucky to have him on. This theme of the week is we're going to talk about networking. So we're talking about networking, the power of relationships, what that means, and all that. So this will also be recorded for YouTube, for the people that are late to arrival. And also repurposed on IGTV. This virtual Frugal Fundamentals workshop is in partnership with Jonathan Van Horn, who's the founder of the Shift program, essentially a program that allows athletes to find purpose outside of their sport. So we're definitely going to have the link in the chat for anyone that's interested. But with that being said, let's welcome Hakeem into the conversation. Thank you for joining us.
Moby, appreciate you having me on, my friend.
Man, it's always a pleasure to have you on. I feel like I learn something new every time we get to connect. But can you talk about like the power of networking and how it served you in your career?
Yeah, I think it's so funny. Like I'm literally my company. We're in the process of doing some ads with a whole bunch of different products, but we just did like a whole like whiteboard session on like the power of networking, like the positives of having a network and the negatives. I think networking is everything. The cliche saying of, your network will define your net worth. I think it's very important. I think everyone needs to have essentially some type of circle of influence around them. Networking I think it comes down to a couple of, key factors. Like number one, ultimately, is being just genuine and authentic. In a 2020 world, everybody can read through BS. Everybody can read through you're being this fake version of yourself because you're at a networking event. Mm-hmm. I think the number one thing is being authentic because people gravitate towards authenticity. And then the number two thing I think is following up. As I say it all the time, the fortunes in the follow-up. We're presented hundreds, if not thousands, of opportunities every single day. And most of us just don't follow up, whether it's listening to a podcast and the guest goes, hey guys, if anyone wants to reach out to me, shoot me an email at this or shoot me a DM. I respond to everybody. And we think in the back of our head at that instant second, like, oh, I probably should reach out to him. And then 10 seconds later, we forget about it. I think all the gold, all the fortune is in following up with those types of people, or whether it's a conversation, whether it's a networking event, whether it's a friend of a friend or someone saying, hey, I know this guy who can do this, that, and that. And you never follow up with that friend to go, introduce you to that person. I think it's so critical.
Yeah, there's a test in there because I feel like certain business people, they give you that kind of call to action to see if you're going to follow up. That's the first step in knowing like, all right, this person's serious. Like you said, like, my DMs are open, my email's here. I don't know how many times I've been able to like get a conversation or get into a room because they're like, oh, wow, you followed up. Like, and then they're more inclined to help you because it shows like you're willing to take that first step and it shows you care.
You got me a speaking gig in Chicago.
Yeah, that's true.
It was over a year ago, but that was like, we literally had a podcast afterwards. And you emailed me and then boom, boom, boom. I think it happened. It's just, there's so many micro moments of opportunity that we miss out on because we don't follow up and we're not intentional about following up. I think that's just something that just needs to be way more top of mind than it usually is.
So can you talk about it from like the athlete perspective? Because as athletes, we're kind of being the ones sought after. So how do you like kind of reverse that and be like, okay, I want to get into real estate. I need to meet this person. I need to meet that person. Or I want to get into speaking. How do I know like this is an opportunity where who cares if it's for free? I'm just going to say yes and then figure out the rest later.
I'll give a multifaceted approach. If I'm an athlete and I want to taste a whole bunch of different things, I would like my best piece of advice is always starting a podcast because it just flips the leverage. People are reaching out to you from all these different angles and you don't know how to sort it. Whereas if you start a show, based around Amobi's life or a frugal athlete, you can decide the different facets that you want to be a part of. You're interested in real estate. You're interested in, let's say, cannabis. You're interested in tech. You're interested in sports business. Then you now having this show and having that leverage, you can now reach out to some of the top key players in those industries. One, they want to meet you anyway, but two, now you're offering them to come on your platform. You have the ultimate leverage versus them having the leverage just in the conversation. And then three, now you have all these key players in your network after you get done interviewing them. From a speaking standpoint, I think one, you'll find opportunities just through interviewing people through your podcast. But then on the back end, I think it's about being intentional. My first year in speaking, I let events come as they came, just through my own personal brand and just not necessarily doing any outreach. Everything was inbound leads. Whereas my second year speaking, we actually created an actual system, back to Fortune in the follow-up, creating an entire CRM just around speaking and then doing outreach. So deciding I want to speak on real estate stages, I want to speak on cannabis stages, I want to speak on sports business stages and entrepreneurship stages. And then, literally mapping out, okay, here's 300 events in those industries. Here's our initial email. It's literally, hey, who hires speakers for X event? And then when the person tells you who it is, then it's just a straight conversation. You obviously got to have your assets in line, your bio, your speaker demo and all that type of stuff. But after that, you being an athlete, you're the prize at the end of the day. And I think taking a proactive approach, especially from a speaking standpoint, most people don't. They just, I want to speak, I want to tell my story, and then just hope people are going to just give them speaking events in that sense. And I think if you actually are proactive about it, it's mind blowing, especially doing a year of just letting it all come to me and then doing a year of getting after it. It's like, I didn't know it was quote unquote this easy. It's just about actually putting the work in, and then actually following up on the back end.
Yeah. So what's something that's maybe overlooked when it comes to networking, in the sense of, you have all these different principles that people tell you to do, the follow up, be more interested than interesting, be a value add. What's something that's overlooked that you would recommend?
LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn and what's it called? Pattern disruption. LinkedIn, one, is just one of the number one just content platforms. If you have the ability to put out content at scale, forget about Instagram, forget about Facebook, forget about TikTok. Great platforms, but LinkedIn, if you're trying to make waves in the business world, that's definitely the place you want to be. But when I say pattern disruption, LinkedIn, everyone's doing the same exact thing. You connect with somebody on LinkedIn, you're an athlete, you get the same copy and paste message. Hey, Amobi, I see you're an athlete in the sports business world. Would love to connect you and have you in my network. It's like, okay. It's just it's the same copy and paste that they send it to everyone.
Yeah.
Where when I say pattern disruption, one thing I do, I used to be doing it for an hour a day. Now it's 15 to 30 minutes a day, but something that works like dynamite. I decide the people that I want to connect with first.
1 second. Let me get my pen so I can write this down, because I know you got to come with the gym. All right, here we go.
This one works like dynamite. I've literally put on a speaking engagement doing this. 30 something people showed up. Decide the people you want to connect with, look them up, connect with them, connect. Don't send a message in the connection. Hopefully they connect with you. You have a dominant profile. They see it. They're like, yeah, I'll definitely connect with Amobi. He's a professional athlete. He's got a podcast. He's an entrepreneur. When they connect back with you, some of them are going to send you the BS copy and paste message, which after you connect with somebody, you can't do this when you're sending the connect request, but after they connect with you, you're allowed to send a video on LinkedIn. So I send a 10-second video to everyone I connect with. So I literally say, hey, Amobi, super happy to be in your network. Hope my content can bring you some value along the way. If you ever need anything, don't hesitate to reach out. Have a great day. I'm not asking for anything. I'm not pushing any products on them. I'm not saying I see you should start a podcast or you should come to my event or you should do I'm not throwing a right hook. I'm literally turning a cold contact to just a warmer one in a short video versus just having a connection, just to have an arbitrary follower in my LinkedIn, following. So instead of doing that, what I've seen, man, it's probably like a 90% or so success rate of those people responding back saying, wow, Hakeem, I've never gotten a video before. Super happy to be in your network. Would love to talk about what you're doing, what you're working on, blah, 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 blah. It literally gets them out of their copy and paste mode and just trying to add arbitrary followers to actually, okay, if we're going to follow each other, let's do business together, or let's figure out a way how we can help each other. Let's figure out what type of people we know, how we can refer, contacts to each other. And it literally turns a cold contact to a warm one. And then now that person on top of that, because how LinkedIn works from a content standpoint, LinkedIn is just one big content pyramid scheme. You know,
Yeah.
if you post your first piece of content and I like it, all my followers see it. And if their followers, if those people like it, all of their followers see it. So it's a lot better if I just sent you a video and then I post some content tomorrow or the next day, you're going to be like, oh, look, it's Hakeem again. We just talked yesterday, blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
blah. Probably going to like it, probably going to engage with it, probably going to comment on it, which is ultimately going to now let their followers see it. And then their followers are going to start connecting with you. And then if you have the time, you send the same video to those people who connect with you as well. If you have the time, like I've got like 400 to 500 connections in the queue. I don't accept it until I have the time to send them a video, because then it's like, why not? Why not turn that cold? Like, I don't want to follow you just to follow you. I don't need a number just to have a number of followers. I'd rather see if we can work with each other, or maybe we don't need to follow each other in that sense.
No, I mean that's gold right there. And as Jonathan Van Horn just alluded to, he literally said that's gold. Just to have that face to face interaction. I think of it like as an athlete when you stay after to sign autographs. Like you could sign them, and then like you have like the administrators that pass them out, or you can actually get out and do the appearances where you're meeting the kids or the fans face to face and having that one-on-one interaction. Like when they can feel and touch you, it's something that lasts way longer than any autograph or connection or like
150%.
friend request that lasts. Yeah, so
They're not expecting that from a professional athlete, first and foremost.
yeah. So I mean, like, can you give us an example of how you used it for real estate in terms of whether it's LinkedIn or just like your cold email approach?
So from LinkedIn, I do these events called the Digital State of Real Estate, where because I have a media company and we work with real estate professionals, and to get investors and agents in the room, like straight up, you go to the LinkedIn search bar, you type in real estate, you type in real estate investor, real estate syndicator, whatever, facet of real estate you want to kind of look for. And in any given market across the country, there's probably at least 3,000 people in that market that will come up when you search that. What I'll do is literally max out the amount of people I can connect with. I don't know what that number is, but it stops you for like, I don't know, a half hour to an hour, and then you go back and do it again. So if I've got an event coming up, let's say in a month and a half, I only speak from stuff I've done. Had an event, I literally set it up in Detroit at this wine shop on the second floor. Like, you know what? I'm going to try and do this. I'm going to try and start my own event just from air. Like, so about a month and a half in advance, I'm starting to add all these different people, send them requests. Once they accepted it, did that literally exact video. Hey, Amobi, super happy to be connected with you, blah, 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 boom. If they responded, I'm like, oh, by the way, I'm hosting this event. And I do it in video, all of it in video. I'm hosting this event called the Digital State of Real Estate out in Detroit. It's free wine, free food. If you can make it out, awesome. If not, awesome. Happy to be in your network. And then send them over the Eventbrite link so they can RSVP. And I did that for probably three to 4 hours of doing that, just videos of those to all these different people that I connect with that I know are in real estate in Detroit. And I think 30 to 35 people showed up to that event, and that the capacity of the room was 40. And like, I was like stoked. Like I believed it would work, but I didn't really think it would work. I mean, literally put on somebody would have hired an event planner to put on an event.
Yeah,
like,
for thousands of dollars.
It was solid. Like I'll give myself a pat on the back for that one. But doing that, I mean, that worked. And another tactic I've used back when I was a rookie in the NFL and the Cardinals, before buying my fourplex, there's a website called biggerpockets.com. That's like the Facebook for real estate investors. And they have these new member introduction forms. And if you're a pro athlete, man, you should do it. If you want to say, if you're a pro athlete in any market across the country, probably, I don't know, I think Bigger Pockets works across the world, but I would 150% make a new member introduction. So you're in Sacramento, you're in St. Louis, you're wherever, saying, my name's Amobi, I play soccer for blah, 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 live in Sacramento. I'm interested in multifamily real estate. I'm interested in fix and flip. I'm interested in buy and hold. I'm interested in the BRRRR strategy. Would love to network with other like-minded investors. And 30 to 50 people responded to that form on the thread, sent me messages. Hey, Hakeem, I live in Tempe, Arizona. I've got a 12-unit apartment building. I'd love to show you it someday. We can talk. Let's have some coffee, and I'll show you what I'm working on. Hey, Hakeem, I just did these 3 fix and flips here in Phoenix. Would love to show you, walk you through, blah, 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 blah. And literally, I spent, I made the post on January 1st, first day of the off season, and I spent the next month and a half every day, either at Starbucks or on sites of different guys who had these different properties, and literally it was learn through osmosis. Like, you can read all the books in the world, which I think is important, especially in real estate, but you're going to learn the most by actually being in the mix, walking these properties and learning from just straight experience of what these people did, and then instantly seeing, I resonate with this, I don't resonate with this, I resonate with this, and I don't resonate with this. Now I'm going to go deeper with this and actually try and do something with it. And I've got these 10 people that are doing this in my network that I can now work with as I go down the line.
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway is, not being afraid to ask, to have an ask. You going on the Bigger Pockets platform, or you going on LinkedIn and asking for help, whatever it may be, because there's going to be people that are willing to help. But I think that's a big component when it comes to networking.
That's real. Athletes, we tend to, we have a level of humility, but we tend to have also the level of ego that we can do everything on our own. Because we've got money at the end of the day, and we just naturally come from a place where we felt like we've got it on our own in that sense. And I think in the business world, that's one of the reasons why I retired. I thought I could do business and all that on my own, and after having a kid while I was playing, I couldn't be the investor entrepreneur I wanted to be and be a dad and play in the NFL. And since I've retired, I've built a team of 11 people around me, and now that's why I have the withstand to potentially go back and play this upcoming season.
Yeah, well, best of luck as you prepare for that. When it comes to networking, what advice would you have for the young athletes, that aren't necessarily want to get involved in real estate, but whatever it may be? What advice would you have for them specifically in this current time right now with COVID?
And professional athletes?
No, professional athletes, student athletes. I feel like student athletes are even more affected because seasons are canceled and eligibility is under question. So yeah. Student athletes, professional athletes.
I think I take a multifaceted approach. The first thing, my company doesn't work with athletes or young people to start their podcast. That's why I'm giving this advice. I would start a podcast because of the simple fact that you can build your network at an accelerated rate, sitting on your couch, sitting in your bed, sitting in your right in your office. And then I'd literally make a list of things I like. I like skateboarding. I like football. I like bicycles. I like food. And then, let's say I'm in Sacramento. Let's look up the top 10 restaurants in Sacramento. Let's look up the top 10 skateboarders in Sacramento. Let's look up the top 10 people, like bike companies or something of that sort. And then I just reverse engineer it, whether it's reaching out to someone in HR, that's a trick. If you're trying to, talk to a CEO or something like that, reach out to HR, see if you can find their assistant or something of that sort. If you can't get to the sun,
so reach out to HR first.
Reach out to HR or someone who's close to the sun that doesn't have a C-level position in that sense.
Yeah.
And then just pretty much tell them what you're doing. I mean, from that perspective, any press right now is good press during COVID because it's everybody's struggling. If you're a college athlete, if you're a professional athlete, you have the leverage because you have the audience, you have the attention. So why wouldn't that business, who's probably going through some tough times right now, want to tell their story and promote what they're doing on your show? Yeah. And then on the back end, you now have that business owner, that person in your network. It's a friendly relationship versus you being just some young kid who's begging or asking for advice or picking that person's brain when that person doesn't necessarily want their brain picked, especially during a time like right now, because that business owner is not going to have time to go get coffee or just have a quick phone call where you ask them 15 questions. But when you flip the script and actually have a platform to have them come and tell their story on, it just switches the leverage because it's almost insensitive. If you're a coffee shop that's going through it right now and you reach out to that coffee shop owner because you have a passion for beans and coffee, and you just want to pick that dude's brain, they're going to be I'm busy as hell right now. You know what I mean? I'm trying to figure out how I can pay mortgage next month. But if you say, I've got the St. Louis Small Business Podcast and I'd love to promote your business on my show, it hits a different endorphin in that person's brain. And they'd be more than willing to come and tell their company's story on your show. And if I was too scared to do a podcast, I would it depends on what you want at the end of the day. Yeah. If you're really trying to get after it, I'd start a podcast. If not, I'd reach out to the person. If you're a professional athlete, reach out to the person who runs the what's it called? The player development of every professional team has a player development office. I'd go to that person and I'd tell them the things I'm passionate about. I'd ask, can you find out what season ticket holders are in real estate? Can you find out what season ticket holders are
Perfect.
in
I'm gonna take that clip and just run with that. I've been telling people for the longest time, player
do that?
development, just whatever you like, what you just said, or when you go to like these sponsorship dinners, like look on the list of who's like there. You can like tell the administrator, yo, I want to make sure I'm sitting next to somebody that works in car dealerships.
Their job is to help you.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Most people just
exactly.
don't ask for the help. They're not going to break your arm to give you value. You know what I mean? But if you're the person who's eager, I used to spend all my time with community development when I was in Arizona, and in Detroit. Put it this way: this is the punchline. Yesterday, so we're potentially going to build a drive-in theater in my hometown, where I'm from, and in Detroit, there's the Ford drive-in theater, and I thought that maybe it was connected to the Ford family, which owns the Detroit Lions. So I literally called our player development office. I was like, "Hey, does Martha, like, does the family own that thing?" He was like, "No, it's on Ford Road." But I'll make some calls and figure out who does own it and try and put you in contact with them so they can help you get your thing started. And like, that's the punchline. That's real life. Like yesterday or 2 days ago is when that conversation all took place. But it's like, and I haven't played for the Lions since 2018.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you talked about being intentional, and that's something I've been trying to focus on for 2020. Like being intentional. You know, you never mentioned anything about making money from the podcast. You said it as a networking tool. So can you talk about like how to be intentional in a world where it's like athletes, you got to find different ways to make money. You got to do this, you got to do that. You got to make sure. How do you stay intentional within networking and not being kind of just, I'm just doing this to make money. I'm doing this to get deal flow. I'm doing this to figure out my life.
I think when you're getting started or before you're successful, and success is that's a wild word to use. Before you've so-called made it, or before you have the headspace to be able to hold your breath. Most people can't hold their breath, like meaning they can't go a year without making $1. If you can, once you get to that point, before you're at that point, my motto is shoot first, aim later. Just shoot, and you'll figure out what you like. But once you've got that headspace and you know you've got time and you're playing the patient game, being intentional is critical. Like cutting the fat of all the different that we just did it 2 weeks ago. Me and my business manager took 2 hours literally talking about, because we pretty much break I break my life down into something called getting things. It's like David Allen getting things done system, where you kind of have an in tray of just ideas and thoughts, and then you kind of get split into next actions, and then someday maybe, and pretty much all the ideas that as an entrepreneur that kind of come up in your head. And then we realized our business has taken 50 different angles, and we realized, like, if somebody asked me what the business did, we're like, if you can't, like, I could answer it, but if I go through all of my 11 employees, they're like they couldn't actually make a one sentence answer. So it kind of really came down. It's painful because you want to do everything, but I think there's a level of being able to like put your head down for 90 days and not question what you're doing. And like, that's intentional, because now, say, like, for example, our company, like, what we do is we're a digital media agency and we focus on podcast production. So when I get inbound requests to do all this different other stuff all the time, now I can just say no. Like, I unapologetically say no, that I can't do that because I don't do that. And then in 90 days, maybe we revisit and go, yeah, maybe we do mess with that. Or maybe we want to start to do this, or maybe we want to do that. But like, most people don't even give what they're working on a chance to get it going. But I think, like, before that level, yes, it does come a level of shoot first, aim later, and then the ability of not judging yourself. Like, I'm big on staying on offense, and before I kind of got to a very intentional place, I juggle 100 things and not care if 74 fail, because I still got 26 in the air. And like, most people only juggle one thing, and they're scared to just drop that one thing. And in reality, they might be missing out on another, 23 opportunities.
No, that's great. I appreciate you sharing that. Once again, Hakeem, it's always a pleasure to have you on. We're going to leave the floor open for anyone that has any questions in regards to networking, or even, he has real estate, he does speaking engagements. So we're opening the floor for anything. With that being said, you talked about, juggling multiple things. And one of my biggest things is multitasking. I've always been a multitasker. I've always been someone that enjoys doing multiple things at once. But how do you find the focus to maybe focus on that one thing that will help the other things kind of flourish as well?
Like, how do we find that one thing in that sense?
Yeah, how did you find the driver to help allow you to do all the other stuff for example, podcasts? You guys focus on podcasts now.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you like? All right, I'm going to do podcasts, but it's going to help me juggle
Got you.
the other things I'm doing.
Got you. So us and me, the way we kind of came up to how we straight up came to the podcasting, like as a company, we're a digital media agency. Before that, we're doing creative strategy and post production of content for different small businesses, for startups, for entrepreneurs, and for professional athletes. We got to the place where we had to just trim fat, like in the middle of pitches, like big pitches for big time A-list celebrities, and just decided like we're not doing it anymore because it's taken too much time away from what we're trying to do. And then in a COVID world, realizing that one, I nothing I believe in more than podcasts. I'm the host of like 6 different podcasts, and I understand the
I'm trying to catch
network,
up to you.
and I understand the networking ability that comes behind it. Like you can't sell stuff you don't believe in that sense. And I consider myself a practitioner in what I do. But what I see and what I realize, me being an entrepreneur, I want to buy businesses like on the back end of this. I think that in the next 8 to 12 months, there'll be companies, in a pre-coronavirus world that was doing somewhere between 1 and 2 million a year. But because of the madness that's happening right now, they're going to probably need somewhere from a $50,000 to $100,000 cash injection in order to even stay afloat, whether it's paying their employees, whether it's they've got own personal expenses that they need to cover or their business can't survive. And just natural overhead of running a business. We want to be in the place where we have enough of a nest egg to be able to, one, decide companies that we want to work with, help, and be a part of, and industries that we want to work with, help, and be a part of that I actually believe in. Make that cash injection to those companies, take a solid, equity percentage stake in some of these different companies, and then run them through our media company thesis and marketing machine, because we'll have the employees to, one, be able to handle it, that are ready for it. So we see what we're doing, podcasting, as it's the avenue. It's something that we already did before this. And now it's like, let's just focus on this because, one, everyone's thought about starting a podcast. Just not many people have had the necessary time to do it. And then 2, people have the time now. And 3, we're living on Zoom nowadays. So like the biggest issue why people don't start a podcast is there's so many different excuses. Oh, I can't, schedule doesn't work. This doesn't work. That doesn't work. Like now is the perfect time in our opinion, because your potential guest is at home, you're at home, and you can use Zoom. And like, that's really the punchline of how we got to exactly where we're at and what we're working on. And then like my speaking opportunities, like we're really focusing them in the digital sense. I'm doing a lot of real estate talks lately that are trying to not push our products, because I don't sell from stage. I'm not comfortable doing that. But talking more and more and more about the digital side of real estate.
Okay. And you talked about, your team of employees, and this question is from Jonathan Van Horn, the leader behind the Shift program. How did you get your employees aligned to know what the one sentence was about for your company?
So we got to the place where, one, I think, especially young people, and they're building companies, especially more virtual companies. We have employees from Los Angeles to Baltimore to the Philippines and to St. Louis. And I think like our production team, most people would treat that team like freelancers, and we treat them like they're employees. And from the perspective of getting them aligned to what we were doing, we, no matter what, every Monday we have an all hands on deck meeting, and it can either be very short or very, very detailed and very kind of straight to the point. And it started with me and my business manager, pretty much like my number 2 with everything I do. Like I said, 2-3 hour, just not a grueling conversation, but it was grueling because it was like, damn, I still want to work on this, but it's like, you really got to drop this because it's like, it's just not working in that sense. And 2, getting their perspective on what we do, and like them not realizing like that it stung a little bit, like, damn, like you're not being the right leader in this sense. If no one actually understands your vision, it's all in your head. You need to get it out. And it literally took us about a week to tighten it up. It was a week of conversations between my business manager, and then it was individual conversations with every single person on the team. And then it was one grand, team meeting that really kind of, set the framework, and then delegating all the stuff where I was essentially the bottleneck for, like, even though, ego always comes into place when it comes to delegating. You know, we think we can do everything
Bro,
ourselves no matter what, and we think we can do it the best. And
my
that's
life changed when I finally got some interns, man.
it's real.
Yeah.
That's real.
So a question from Taryn. She was on our first guest for our first money management talk, week one. Where do you foresee your real estate endeavors or position in Q3, Q4 for this year?
I still think there's no telling. I think there's no telling what the residual effect of COVID is going to be. I think there's a lot of gurus out there that are walling, in my opinion. Like the bold statements that you're seeing from some people, like, oh, real estate's fine, blah 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 blah. And I just think like there's no telling. Like, I mean, I've in my properties over the last 2 months, so April and May, thank God, there's been no what do you call it? Everyone's paid rent, which is wild and awesome. But you don't know. I mean, right now, what's the number right now for unemployment? Like the number of people just who make under $40,000 who've lost their job is like it's incredible. And I think the residual effect when I say that is like we don't know what's going to go on with universities. We don't know what's going to go. Like universities play such a big role in real estate that people don't realize.
That's true.
And I think that the big thing that a lot of people are missing from a micro macroeconomic standpoint is that big time companies are realizing that they can survive and they can still be successful virtually. So big time companies that are in cities like, let's say Miami, let's say New York City, let's say San Francisco, let's say LA, that don't necessarily have to now be in LA anymore or be in New York City anymore. I think what you're going to see is a lot of the workers aren't going to live there because they don't have to. Instead of, living and working in New York, you can live in,
Austin, Texas. I'm telling people Austin,
Texas, or anywhere, because you can work virtually in that sense. And now you can live for cheaper and make the same amount of money working from home or working twice a week and just making that commute on those 2 days out of the week versus I know a lot of companies are going to the place of we're going to stay virtual at least 2 days a week or 1 day a week. And I think that's going to make not like that's US Q3, Q4. That's obviously not going to affect Q3, Q4, but I think like the next 5 years, that's like New York City might not have the same super real estate term, but cap rate that it does right now, or San Francisco or LA. I think the value might change, and that might be just a massive shift because those tertiary markets are going to be very, very powerful. So you're going to see the surrounding markets outside of San Francisco. Alameda already has expensive real estate, but it's probably going to go up even more. Or like all the surrounding areas of those major cities where people don't have to live downtown anymore. Like, obviously vibes and views and stuff like that. People who've got bread are ultimately going to still live there. But I think that like the major workforce in these major cities, I think is going to play in a major effect in real estate. But then Q3, Q4, some of these tenants can only hold their breath long enough. Like, living expense is usually like the number one thing that you make sure you can pay for. And then everything else you kind of, put to the side. You might not eat out as much. You might not, splurge on Amazon as much. You might not do all those different things. But like, if this continues and people continue to not have jobs and it like continues to just like people have to have a place to live, but then it's just going to be an ultimate tandem of can these landlords get forgiveness periods from their mortgage companies? And then will these landlords give a break to their tenants? And it's just going to be, we're already seeing how massively unorganized we are as a country. And I think like real estate, the boldness of coming out of some of the gurus is alarming because a lot of people are following. A lot of people are still just throwing their money in real estate. I don't think we're not even close to the bottom yet. Like people are thinking it's a great time to buy. I think it'll be a great time. Like when there's blood in the streets, that's when you buy. And there's not blood in the streets yet. Like I think when shit really, really hits the fan is when it's time to like buy. But you have to have a lot of cash on hand to do that because you're not going to be able to get a loan when there's blood in the streets.
Yeah.
I think right now I'm playing the patient game. I don't plan on deploying not a dollar of capital for at least a minimum of 6 months.
Okay, that's a good take to have. Taryn also said that she's virtual until January, February. Twitter announced, Jack Dorsey said, Twitter announced that he sees them being virtual as long as they want. I know.
Where's their headquarters at? San Fran?
San Fran and New York. They got 2 big offices there.
That's the punchline.
Yeah.
I think like take Twitter. That's a major company. You know what I mean? Like now take all the other companies that probably aren't making as much money as Twitter.
Yeah, that's a good take. I want to ask one more last question before I let you go, or before anyone else comes in with other questions. You talked about your business manager. Networking, it's obvious. Networking is really important when it comes to finding like a business manager. Some people use their friends. Some people go on search for one. What was the process for you finding your business manager?
That's a great question. So I used to have a virtual assistant. Wound up firing her. Um, how I found my business manager. It was a speaking event at the 4040 Club in New York, and
Okay.
I was on a panel with no flex, no flex. Um, I was on a panel with NFL player. His name is Josh Martin, and I actually met him two
Oh, he's
years.
doing great things too.
Oh, he's doing great things. Yeah, we met prior 2 years ago because the NFL does all these different like the NFL player engagement does like a big like does all these different like academies all year that you can go for free while you're playing, and they did a speaking like bureau in LA on USC's campus back I think in 2017. Me and Josh kind of got really close during that trip, and we kind of disconnected from there, and it was just like, oh snap, we're on the same panel together, and we're chatting, and then after the talk we're kicking it, and he introduces me to Jake Miller, who's my business manager, and was like, talking about some of the things he does, and I'm like, damn, like, because like my virtual assistants have been in the Philippines. There's been a massive disconnect in just American culture, what I'm doing, and she lost me a solid amount of money just making like just mistakes, and it was just kind of the stars aligned. Like it was like I loved what he was doing. Josh really, hyped him up. And then it was like that event was on a Thursday. On Saturday, I was going to an event in Denver, like a real estate conference. And Jake at the time was living in Denver. And it was like, yo, why don't we just link up like while we're in Denver? And he came over to the Airbnb, and we wind up kicking it until like 2, 3 in the morning. And then like there was no Airbnbs no Ubers where we were staying at 3 in the morning. So I had to wind up driving him to like an area that had like Ubers. But like us realizing that we can actually have a human to human just real relationship outside of business as well, that's where it kind of clicked for me. And then him then becoming that, like, I mean, it was the first event when I met him was in October. I don't think I hired him until mid-January ish of this year, and I kid you not, completely changed everything in my business, completely changed everything.
No, it's important because I was talking to Ricky Miller. He's like a former arena football player, CEO now for a spirits and luxury company. And he
Okay.
talked about having like you have a visionary and you have an integrator, and like the importance of having two within trying to build something will take you to heights you never imagined. And,
The greatest yin and yang. Like I have on most of my biz dev type of calls, I always have them there because I'm not the person who I try and take notes. I try and do stuff like that. I'm just not that person. I just get ideas and I talk and I blabble and then I forget what I just said. And he's the guy who takes the notes and then actually maps out, is it realistic what you just said? Can you actually do that? Can we actually deliver on it as a company? What are the steps are we going to deliver on? Like, who are we going to delegate this to? What are you going to do? And like, those are realistic questions. Most people just talk. And
yeah,
like, I like realized maybe some of the stuff I'm doing, I'm full of shit in some situations that I can't actually deliver on. And he checks me like in like obviously at a solid business type of relationship type of way, but it's necessary because it makes you so sharp. And then we do like 2 to 3 brain dumps a day, like just talk for 5 minutes. Like, yo, I've thought about this. What do you think about this? Talk to this person today. This happened, that happened. I think we need to do this, that, and that. And then talk later, boom. And then all of a sudden, all that stuff is now put into, so our life is ran off of Google Docs with that getting things done system.
yeah,
So he then puts my next actions in there, like things I need to do next. He puts things that I've done and that we're waiting for someone's response on. Like one of my next actions is still sending you over that email that I told you about.
no
But like,
worries.
it's damn near at the top of the list now. But about not judging yourself at the end of the day.
No, that's important. And I want to touch on something else you said. You talked about firing, people. As athletes, we kind of want to be beloved by everybody. So can you talk about like letting go of like certain relationships when it comes to networking, like ones that may not be conducive to you for where you're trying to go or where you're currently at?
It's real. I think we need to be in business, we need to be human beings and we also need to be machines. Like you need to be like extremely unemotional and unattached to a lot of different things, but you also need to have like a severe amount of empathy.
Mm.
And I think like it's such an oxymoron, but like the perfect blend of that is what can kind of make you successful as an athlete and in business. So like my thesis, I take it from Gary Vee, is hire fast and fire faster. Because like hiring is guessing, firing is knowing. And like you have like,
Oh,
you know, like
I like
hire,
that.
like you guess, like, yeah, this person will probably work
I
out in
gotta write
this
that
position.
down.
Definitely right there. This guy will probably work out in this position. And then when like
Yeah.
and then you wait another 2-3 weeks and like to make sure that they're, you know, like actually screwing up. But like it's literally hire fast, fire faster. Because like once you it helps your culture. Everyone knows the jack off on your team or in your company, and it's affecting everyone else's culture by you keeping up and putting up with their stuff. And I think firing one, it's not like creating a culture of fear. It's creating a culture of, oh, this boss actually cares that this person is destroying the energy of the team, or this person is taken away from everything else that everybody else is doing. And I think as athletes, yes, we get into a place of just being so welcoming and so arms open to everyone that kind of comes in our circle that we can almost damage our circle by doing that. And then you kind of got people who judge you by association because you got this person in your circle, if you know what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
and like that person probably shouldn't be in your circle in that sense. I think it comes to a point of being very unapologetic about the moves you make, because it's at the end of the day, it's you. Like at the end of the day, like we care too much about other external factors, but you have to be unapologetic about what's going to make you happy and get you kind of going. But then at the same time, like I said, you got to have empathy. Like, okay, you're firing this person because they lost you $400 or $1,000 or $10,000, but you need to now, you know, that this person works and is really good at this, and you know this person who needs help with this, so maybe you put them on with something like that. Like it's a yin and yang in that sense.
No, thank you. That's really important because that's something I like have problems with. First of all, I don't even like delegating. So hiring an intern or anything like that, I'm just like, you're not gonna get it like how I get it. And then like,
That's real.
and then letting them go at that when it doesn't come out to how you wanted it. So I'm always happy when I get to talk to you, have a chance to speak with you about different topics. So with that being said, it doesn't look like anyone has any questions. So I'm just going to leave it open to the room for anything. I'm going to let Jonathan come and give his talk. But once again, Hakeem, where can we find you? Actually, where can we find you? Thank you so much.